Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Now, every business leader knows that their customer expectations are evolving. They know that they need to transform their operations by leveraging technology, and they also know they need to disrupt before they're disrupted. But for the most part, many want to chase that shiny new technology, but they're also challenged with the very realistic and heavy burden of things like technical debt, legacy systems, processes, and a culture of, but we've always done it this way. And these are the things that are not only holding businesses back, but also causing digital hesitation. So when I read that JP Wood and Thomas Law have released a book called Digital Hesitation and talking about why B2B companies aren't reaching their full digital potential, I invited the authors on the podcast today to talk about digital customer experiences, data-driven sales, customer success at scale, digitally enabled partners, all those things that will help a business reach their full potential. So I invited them on the podcast today to talk about all that and much more. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the US, where both JB and Thomas are waiting to speak with us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show, guys. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, I'm JB Wood. I'm the CEO of the Technology and Services Industry Association. We're one of the largest industry associations in the world. And we're primarily a research organization that serves B2B tech and industrial companies on best practices for optimizing their income statement.
Awesome. And we've got two guests today. We've got Thomas as well. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about you too, Thomas?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Thomas Law, and I serve as the executive director for TISA. And what that means is that all the research that we do reports into me, and I've been here with JB pretty much from the beginning.
Well, there's so much I want to talk with you guys about today. When I was doing a little bit of research before you came on the show, I read about Technology and Services Industry Association and also the fact that you've written a new book. So can you tell me a little bit more about the story behind the company and also the inspiration behind that book?
Yeah, it's interesting. As early in the 1990s, it became clear to me, I was running another company at that time, but that the word services was going to become a more important word in the tech industry. And at that time, services were primarily defined as, professional services and support and maintenance services and those types of traditional businesses, which were getting bigger and bigger and bigger inside of companies like HP and IBM. But that there was the inkling of this notion of everything as a service. So you could buy the entire portfolio of hardware, software, equipment, whatever it was, as a service. And at that time, I began wondering where the sort of IP, the management IP around how to optimize service businesses, where that was. And the answer is that it didn't really exist. There was some minor information, academic information, I would call it, about running service businesses, but there was no real world data, best practices, and insights. And that's why we formed TSIA. And now we have hundreds and hundreds of the largest, most influential companies in the world who have agreed to go under non-disclosure with us and provide data about their business practices and the actual business results they're getting. And then we have data scientists and industry experts who are analyzing all that data to look basically for patterns of success and failure, right? What's working and what's not working in the real world as it relates to every manner of service or as a service business. We just want to make sure that there's facts on the table, right? And we have the biggest library of those facts and the biggest library of business best practices for these kinds of companies, B2B companies specifically, anywhere in the world.
And that's one of the things that excites me about what you're doing here, because it's not just about having an expert or a team of experts. It's about getting those real life insights from businesses all around the world. And there are so many books, websites and guides about digital transformation out there. But I think for most business leaders who want to chase the the shiny new tech, they're also challenged with that heavy burden of technical debt, legacy systems, processes and culture, and also that infamous saying, but hey, we've always done it this way. I'm curious, is this something that you hear a lot in the conversations you're having?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I mean, absolutely. And it's one of the reasons we called this book our latest book, Digital Hesitation, right? Yeah. Companies are hesitating because this is a really steep hill decline. But let's first level set. When you talk about digital transformation, because that's a very overused word in the industry. When we talk about that, we really see that there are two potential value vectors, if you will, that technology companies can pursue with digital transformation. And the first value vector is unlocked when they start to basically tear down operational complexity by migrating both their infrastructure and their solutions to the cloud. So there's some operational costs there that can be realized. But the second value vector is unlocked when they now are much more connected to their customers and they have telemetry that they've never had before that unlocks new value propositions. And so the journey is worth it. But the technical debt, right, is a real barrier in pursuing both of those value vectors to the point, literally, we have seen some management teams just bow their heads and say, this is just too hard, right? But that cannot be the answer if you want to stay relevant in the marketplace. And the good news is we are seeing more and more success stories out there. We just published a really interesting case study on how Informatica has been navigating this transformation from going, traditional tech business model on-prem technology to more in the cloud. In the case study, they acknowledged that refreshing their back office system was one of the hardest tasks, and that it absolutely takes more time and treasure than anyone predicts or wants to deal with. But it's a non-negotiable requirement to get through that.
As we defined, in this book that, and we were have been going through this journey with all these leading companies for many, many, many years now. And it was so interesting the way the industry the technology industry specifically picked up this conversation around what does digital transformation mean? And the first wave that everybody, got pretty early on was, well, that means we have to cloud enable our products and we have to subscription enable our portfolio. And that was seen as, I think, by a lot of companies, the beginning and end of digital transformation. They were the legacy companies who sold hardware and software assets were now going to cloud enable everything. And they were going to move to a subscription, ARR-based offer. And that once that was done, they were done. And what we know now, and what we've been saying for a long time, is that is only the first wave of this journey. The second wave of this journey is about simplifying and digitizing all of the complex customer experience frustrations that we've built into the models for these complex B2B companies, the complex sales processes and service processes and pricing processes and all of those things. And that specifically is where you run into this, technical debt and legacy systems problem, because that, in order to simplify the customer experience, you got to both lean out the business, but you've got to unite all this data from all these services and play it back to customers in a meaningful and, analytics-led experience. And that, for a bunch of companies that were exhausted from wave one, to hear that there's a major wave two that they've got to do to stay competitive is one place where they begin to really hesitate.
And as you've said, Will, we've both said a few times now, the big question that you tackle in this book is overcoming digital hesitation. And I suspect we will have business leaders listening around the world who've been nervously nodding along with the problems that we've highlighted today. So the big question now, with the scene set, is how should they begin to overcome that digital hesitation?
Yeah, well, I would say first and foremost, leadership teams need to believe that a fundamental business model transformation is unavoidable. All the things that JB was just talking about in this wave two, that they have to do it, and that the status quo is not sustainable. And if they do not believe that, they will continue to hesitate, full stop. But once that burning platform is in place, and they're convinced they have to move forward, then they can study proven tactics from several companies now, right, that have made or are making this transformation. So the good news is you don't have to start this journey anymore with a blank piece of paper. There are some really good, roadmaps out there that you can follow.
And I would say the other thing is that, that we're really seeing is that there are some sacred cows that companies are very afraid of opening, the conversation around. And, I was thinking this morning, I live in a small town in Silicon Valley. If you were the mayor of this town and you said, well, I really want to have a great experience for the people who are driving around our town. And you said, well, I'm going to make all the traffic lights green, except for that one there and that one there, and they're going to stay red all the time. You wouldn't have a very good driving experience for very long. Everybody would get backed up and backed up and backed up. And there are topics in this digital transformation journey that companies don't want to talk about, don't want to face, right? The high cost of sales and marketing, as an example, the lack of product quality. There are just, the relationship with channel partners. We see companies hesitating on tough issues and saying that part can't be transformed. So it's like, the red lights that are never going to change, and things just back up and back up and back up around these sacred cow topics. And we tackle those in the book because at the end of the day, and if you look at what's going on in the economy in 2022 and the pressure that companies are under to grow profitably, some of these sacred cows have got to be attacked. We can't go on with, 30, 40 for some of the born in the cloud companies, 50% cost of sales and marketing, and poor product quality that's causing frustration for both employees and customers. So we got to start tackling not the easy things, not the easy ones that everybody shakes their head and says, yeah, it should be simpler to place an order with us, but the harder things like our go-to-market strategies and our the relationship between the product teams and the customer experience of doing business with a company. These are issues that are not issues that typically companies have been willing to discuss, and it causes them to hesitate.
So I'm curious here. Are these messages reaching the boardroom? Are businesses overcoming the challenges of getting buy-in from the board, and also those complexities that come with it, and accepting that it is a journey and not a destination, not just a box-ticking exercise? I apologize, there's about 3 different questions in there, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, no worries. We actually wrote a chapter about this challenge. Yeah. And unfortunately, there are many board members that have no experience with the evolving tech business models, right? Only the traditional business models. Also, they have no experience in helping a company navigate an end-to-end business model transformation. And it's interesting, if you look at companies that are being successful here, they almost always bring in 1 or more new board members that do understand these challenges.
And sometimes often bring in a new CEO to tackle it.
Yeah.
Yes, but it is, to Thomas's point, we talk about this in the in the book, that a lot of board members, they've been very successful at whatever companies they were at prior to joining this board. But we are on the bleeding edge of, at least in the world of B2B, we're on the bleeding edge of transforming the experience of being a B2B customer for complex products and services, and also the economic models of being a B2B company. And, Thomas has a favorite saying that you can't offer proof of something that hasn't been proven, right? I mean, every company says, well, show me somebody who's done it. Well, nobody has gotten all the way through to the other side of this, right? But that same thing could have been said for B2C companies, in 1995. But what is clear is that customer expectations are changing, old economic models are breaking, and there are going to be winners in this. There are going to be companies who have the fortitude to get through this to the other side, who understand how to communicate with shareholders along that journey in such a way that shareholders are not upset about the short-term dilution of margins or whatever it is, but very excited about the long-term opportunity for growth and profitability that some of these transformations represent. But again, for board members who have never had the need to manage a company through this transformation, there are a lot more sort of questions out there than insight and advice to the CEO on how to navigate this transformation.
And there's so many great points in that, because over the last 3 years, we've all been on a journey from remote working at scale to the great resignation, hybrid working, quiet quitting. And I read a great stat a few days ago that from this moment forward, 98% of meetings will have at least one attendee off site. And it does feel like we're moving towards now, not just where we work, but improving how we work and working from anywhere, any device, any location, etc. And as a result, I also saw Microsoft is heavily investing in employee experience software. So can you tell me more about the importance of both the customer and employee experience platforms? Because it's another trend that seems to be gathering pace at the moment.
Yeah, let me focus on the customer experience side of it, because B2B companies, right, are notorious for making our customer experiences complex.
Yeah,
it's hard to learn about our products. It's hard to buy our products. It's hard to expand, to new options. And I don't know if you're familiar with the movie The Big Lebowski, but as the dude said, this shall not stand, man. This shall not stand, right? So we believe B2B tech providers need to learn from their B2C brethren. As JB just mentioned, if you turn the clock back in time, B2C companies were hard to work with as well, and they figured that out. So the B2B companies have to learn from that and invest more heavily in designing lower friction digital customer experiences so the customers can try and buy your solutions. And that's where it's going to go.
It's interesting on the employee side. We had our one of our 2 annual conferences last week in Las Vegas, and we were in Thomas and I were in our executive board meeting, and this conversation came up about work, the work environment of the future. And one of the things that and again, these are some of the biggest companies in the world. They're saying, hey, look, one of the things we know for sure is that employees who joined during the pandemic. We have higher attrition rates there. They've never been in the office. They don't know their team. We have higher attrition rates there than we do with the employees that were here before the pandemic came. Well, now I think to your point, Neil, we're going to have a greater percentage of the workforce that is engaging remotely. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think the defining characteristic of companies' employee base are, do the employees want to work there? And when you think about, if it's somebody in services as an example, why are they in services? They're in services because they want to help the customer. They want to be with the customer. And if they're spending 70% of their day on internal, tasks and systems and all those kinds of things, that is an employee that is, at risk in a remote environment. And so simplicity, right? I mean, really, like I used the expression before, leaning out these businesses, doing better jobs of automating mundane tasks, in effect, allowing employees to focus on the places that they can contribute to both the company and the customer. That's where the future of work is and the future of success is. And for most companies, if you look at, I'll give you the extreme example, which is sales, right? Sales has been asked to do more and more and more, but they're really not transforming. They're just getting tools to make more cold calls or, more emails or more whatever it is, instead of really transforming their behavior. And every sales rep would tell you, I don't spend much time with customers. I'm spending time doing all these other tasks. And what I really need to do to hit my number and to be satisfied in my job is to have time working with customers. And so I think employers do have to go on both the experience journey and the customer experience journey and the employee experience journey, because quite frankly, you need wondrous experiences on both sides of the equation, or both break down.
100% with you on that. Or as Jeff Bridges would say in The Big Lebowski, the dude abides. But
Right.
a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Nextiva. If you find yourself switching between a bunch of different apps just to talk to your customers and your team, you need Nextiva, because Nextiva helps you calm the madness of customer and team conversations by giving you just one place to call, text, chat, email and video meet. And the real special thing here is that you'll see the entire conversation history in a single thread. So now when a customer contacts you, you'll see their entire story, so you can say the right thing right now. So get one app to manage all of your customer and team conversations by getting Nextiva. And you can do that by visiting nextiva.com/techtalkdaily. I'm curious, what are the big takeaways from your book? What is the key message that you wanted to deliver to business leaders who may be listening to this podcast now and maybe go on to check that book out? What is those key messages that you want them to walk away with?
Well, I mean, I think that the main message is simple, and that is that B2B tech business models are going to rapidly transform. And you have two choices. You can hesitate and become irrelevant in the marketplace, or you can lean into this transformation.
Yeah, and I would say that these red light subjects cannot stand. They're daunting, they're scary, but that is the hard work that is going to spell the difference between a high growth and high profit company and a company that is not either or neither of those things. And so the question of, how do we dramatically improve the efficacy of our go-to-market strategies? That means, touching the subject of how we sell, touching the subject of how we work with partners, and really opening that up to the idea that there's an opportunity today for fundamental transformation in areas like that, or fundamental opportunities to put more of our marketing and sales and service capability into the features and functions of our product. If we could better unite our product management function with the other operating aspects of the business, as opposed to product departments saying, leave me alone, I'm in charge of product, and don't trouble me with these other thoughts. I mean, those, going after product, going after sales, going after partner, those big red light areas have to be attacked. And it's going to take courage for companies to do. We're getting better and better and better insight into how step by step you go through these processes. But we're just not going to get to the other side of this if we don't attack the big elephants in the room.
Absolutely. And we're all coming towards the end of the year now and starting to plan for 2023 already. That's something I never thought I'd hear myself say out loud. But I'm curious, what are the biggest trends that might have caught your eyes this year, and how will they help your strategy for 2023, would you say?
Well, hey, Neil, right now I'm literally drafting my annual State of the Industry paper that we put out at the beginning of the year. And the working title is 2023, the year of profitable SaaS. Because, we believe one of the biggest trends in tech right now is that it is no longer cool to be a high growth company that is also highly unprofitable.
Yeah, and and the notion, as Thomas is alluding to, it used to be there were two different business models out there. There was the sort of venture and private equity backed, born in the cloud model, where it was growth, and don't worry about the cash. The cash will be there, and so those companies were highly unprofitable. Were buying their revenue with high sales and marketing costs. And that was perfectly great, right? And stock prices went up and people made a lot of money that way. And then there were the more traditional, larger legacy, if you will, companies, where their shareholders weren't venture capitalists, they were value investors, who were really married to the dividend, right? And those companies had high profits, but very low growth. And so in what 22 has done is to bring, I would say, those two thoughts closer together. We're fond of saying growth versus profits shouldn't be a choice. And for so long, it's been sort of okay to say I'm on one side of that fence or the other. And starting in 2023, to Thomas's point, it's not going to be okay. We are going to have to go back to the good old days of figuring out what profitable growth looks like. And that is going to require, again, the economics associated with these two old business models, neither of which was achieving both high growth and high profits. Neither of those models taken alone is going to be good enough for what we have to do in 2023. So there's going to be a lot of glass broken. And we think that's a good thing for customers and for employees. And 2023 is going to be the year when everybody gets on the same page about what the transformations are, how some of these tough subjects are going to be handled. And I think, we're already starting to see, the stocks of companies who are heading in the right direction toward profitable growth are already being rewarded. But it's going to be a new ways to ride the bicycle for all these companies. But ultimately, we think it's in the best interest of both shareholders and customers and employees.
Well, I cannot thank both of you enough for coming on here and spending a bit of your time sharing your insights with me today. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you to share one other thing with me, and that is a book that has inspired you that we can add to our Amazon wish list, or a song that means something to you that we can add to our Spotify playlist. All I ask is what are you going to share, and is there a story behind that choice? So JB, I'll let you go first.
Well, I have been read twice and have been thinking a lot about a book called Product-Led Growth by Wes Bush. And, it's really talking about how companies can get their customers to be successful at adopting, expanding, and renewing offers in the actual product experience, not having to work with people to do it, but actually having it unfold in the product experience. And that's something we see as consumers every day. But most B2B companies have stopped short of that, saying, we're simply too complex. That could never be. And I've been spending a lot of time trying to envision and to unpack how that could actually become a reality for complex B2B companies. And it's really got my mind going.
Fantastic. I'll get that added to our Amazon wish list. And Thomas, no pressure. What are you going to leave us with?
Yeah, I also go with the book. I just delivered a keynote at our conference last month that JB was talking about. And I referenced the book by Roger L. Martin, and it's titled A New Way to Think. And it is a really good framework on how companies, if they're struggling with their ability to define new business strategy, he provides a great framework on how to kind of crack through that. So I highly recommend
Thomas had 1,400 people standing up last week and repeating as loudly as they can.
The status quo has risk.
The status quo has risk. So it was a bit of a revival moment, but he had 1,000 more people, 1,400 people standing up and yelling, "The status quo has risk."
Wow.
And I think, yeah.
What an incredible moment. And before I let you go, we've talked a lot about other people's books, etc. But obviously you guys have got a book out. So anyone listening wanting to find out more information about that book, your work at TISA, any of the work that you're doing there, how to contact your team, what's the best starting point for everything?
We actually have, I think it's 8 books we published. Digital Hesitation is the most recent. It just came out. It's available on Amazon. That would be the best place to go get it. I think, you can reach me at JB Wood at LinkedIn. You can also visit our website, tsia.com, to learn more about our business and the opportunity for your company to get involved in this amazing community of global companies. And so those are probably the highlights of the access question. So Thomas, over to you.
Yeah, no, all those things, and really look forward to people plugging into our community.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. Learned so much from you guys today around why most B2B companies are failing to reach their full potential of those digital transformation efforts that we keep hearing about. And the big message for me at the end there, of course, was the status quo has risks. So thank you so much for sharing that with me today.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
So a big thank you to both JB Wood and Thomas Laugh to talk about their book, Digital Hesitation. It's a great read. And also the work that they're doing at the Technology and Service Industry Association, whose membership community consists of over 40,000 executives from 96 countries, representing 80% of the Fortune 100 technology companies out there. A great interview. Love chatting with these guys. I hope to meet them in person at some point, but I'd love to hear your insights about everything that you heard today. So please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilCHughes, and my website, if you'd like to work with me or look at over 2,100 other interviews, is techblogwriter.co.uk. So send me a message, ask me a question, come on the show, whatever it is. We'll keep this conversation going, and I hope you'll join me again tomorrow too. So thanks for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.